Welcome back to action from the Extreme Festival of Motorsports Regional Category Round 1 at Redstar Raceway. Nice crowd coming out. The family atmosphere, as always at Extreme Festival, is paramount. And it's great to have the youngsters and everybody else coming to see the Car Care Clinic Superhatch go at it for the first time this season. With Superhatch, it's a big family affair and everybody tries to jump in and help everybody else out. Whether you're working on your own car or your friend's car, it's vital that they get those cars onto the track, and they will do everything in their power to do that. The reigning champion is Nick Martin. He, of course, is going to be a tough man to beat, and slowly but surely has become a very seasoned campaigner in this class. We managed to catch up with him down in pit lane just before race 1.
Well, we're going to push as hard as always and do the best we can in qualifying, get as many points as we can and finish every race is the idea.
Well, Nick, how do you prep that Peugeot of yours before every race to get it race prepped?
You take it apart and you put it all back together.
Nice to have some new blood on the circuit as well, with George Aldrich joining us for the first time.
You know, on my age, you're looking for something more exciting, something to do, a bit of adrenaline rush. I know it's quite late in my life to start business like this, but this was my first time ever on the track, so still got a lot to learn. And you see, the problem is I get a bit car sick. I get on this track, and that's catching me out a bit. So hopefully on the next track with less corners, it will be better. The guys are fantastic, a fantastic group of people helping each other. There's a lot of camaraderie, so it's really a nice group of people.
It always is great to see everybody jumping in to help everybody else out here in Superhatch. Most of these guys have got full-time jobs, so there's not a lot of time for them to get their cars prepped in between the heats and in between the 2 rounds of racing. But once they're good enough to race, we can get them on track. And we have some phenomenal dices that have happened in Superhatch in the past. And that's why Car Care Clinic has joined us as part and parcel of their input here as the Superhatch sponsor. As the lights went off, the usual contenders would be the one you'll be looking for at the front end. Unfortunately, it was not the case with Jonathan du Toit not making it out for the very first time. So it was up to Brett Garland, Tyler Scott and Francois Henning to go at it down into turn 1. A great start came out of Nick Martin as well in Class B, but it was good to see a new man in the mix, Courtney Nichols, stepping up, having won last year's Volkswagen Driver Search. He'd be in the mix there with Mel Spur, Nick Martin and Robert Stoltz, all fighting for Class B honours. In Class A, it was Garland who got away, and there was no answer at the initial part of the race there, coming out of Tyler Scott. We lost Francois Henning. He dropped back into the pack and fought it out with the Class B contenders. No one really had an answer to the number 2 car from last year. That's the number 2 in the championship overall. There is your champion from the overall standings for 2019, Nick Martin in the Peugeot, and we saw that he's taken that entire Peugeot apart to get it ready for today. Courtney Nicholl, the new man to the series, joining the George Aldrich car. And Courtney Nicholl comes, of course, from the AMG Driving Academy. And he'd be pushing hard every single occasion to try and find a way through. But he was fighting hard there with Shane, I can't remember his name, and, of course, Andre Danhauser. Mal Spur was second at this stage and pushing hard to possibly even take the win ahead of Nick Martin. But the way that Courtney Nicholl was driving showed that the AMG Driving Academy man certainly knows what to do. He's not used to driving front-wheel drive, but he certainly got to grips with it really well. Freddie Watkins and Priestley continued their battles from 2019. Unfortunately, it was Henning on the sideline, parking it eventually, and would not complete his day in Class A for Race 1. At the back end, we saw Kenneth Ella, Ishmael Boloy fighting hard, and a great debut there for the number 60 of George Aldrich. Forget going at it with Danhauser right through the pack and into the latter part of the race. And eventually, it was Danhauser who squeezed out him and got to the front end of Class C. Coming to the line, plain sailing at the end of the day for Brett Garland, rolling out ever so slightly and allowing Tyler Scott to close in on him. Scott would come through and take second place for Class A. Class B went to Nick Martin. Mal Spur fended off the very hard attack right in the closing stages from Courtney Nicholl. Nicholl is certainly going to be a man to watch out for in Class B, and Mal Spur is going to have her hands full with that young man behind. And speaking of behind, there is the lead for Class C coming to the line, and Danhauser taking it from Shane Forget, with Craig Priestley just in the background winning out over Freddie Watkins. Confirmation of the results there. It is a Class A win for Brett Garland, ahead of Class B's win for Nick Martin, and Class C honours going to Andre Danhauser. Let's catch up with the new man in Class B, Courtney Nicholl.
Oh, incredible feeling. Had a lot to learn, a lot to pick up from the academy and their instructors and their team that they had in charge there. But you know, I never really felt like I'd won anything until the plan started going down to you know, meet with Graham, Nathan, who's sorting out the car and prepping the car. And then I looked at it, it had my name on it, and then it had my name on it. Then we put my number on, and then things started happening. And then last week I thought to myself, this is really happening. So, you know, it was a surreal feeling that I've now, you know, not got over. I think I'll still feel it for a good couple of weeks, but you now just realize that, yes, this is exactly what I wanted, and this is exactly where I want to be. Not as easy as some people might think it is, being, you know, not as, let's say, competitive as what a Polo Cup race series is or anything like that, but trust me, these gentlemen know how to drive these cars of theirs, and although they don't have their own pit crew and mechanics, their cars are just as well prepped by their own blood, sweat and tears, so you know that you're never going to have an easy race with any of these cars around on the field.
Great to have Dunlop Rubber on these cars for 2020. They've joined the Car Care Clinic and Volkswagen Challenge as the official tyre suppliers for Superhatch. And those Dunlop Rubber are now ready to go for race number 2. Brett Garland looking for a double victory on the day as everybody gets ready to go for the second heat. Let's see if anybody can go and beat him. Tyler Scott certainly will be looking to go and get to the front end if possible. The crowds are standing by for race 2. Green flags all round, and as the lights went out, they headed down towards turn number 1, a slightly diminished field, a couple of cars with some issues that weren't able to be sorted out. But yet again, it was Garland who was going to go side by side with Tyler Scott into turn 1. A phenomenal start coming out of Courtney Nickel, and with a little bit of rain around, could be a slightly different way things turn out. Mel Spur showing the finesse of the ladies and getting the whole shot into turn 1 for Class B ahead of Nick Martin and Courtney Nickel. You can see a little bit of a change up there as well, as Robert Stoltz was just ahead of Class B. He got a great drop off the line in the Opel Kadett. Speaking of Opel Kadetts, out front it was Tyler Scott who hit the front in the Lopec Auto Spares machine, beating the Autobahn Honda. And could he keep it all together? He was trying very hard to. Every single time they hit the brakes, there was pressure coming from the back end. And with more and more rain coming, he ended up going a bit farming. And if you look at the kind of helmet he wears, the motocross style lid was perfect for those kind of conditions. He got sideways off one side and then off the other side as well. It wasn't quite going according to plan there for Tyler Scott. And certainly not for Mal Spur. And look at the pressure from Mal Spur, tucked in behind Francois Henning, who managed to get his car sorted out. But Nick Martin was applying the pressure, forced him wide, and allowed the Class B steam train to come through, followed by Courtney Nickel and Mal Spur. Peugeot versus Volkswagens, and the two Polos there in the mix, with Mal Spur just not able to get through on Francois Henning. He was hindering her ever so slightly and making mistakes. That's what cost Mal Spur the possibility of a second place in the class. Fouget going at it again with Andre Danhauser, lights on the Opel Kadett and managing to squeeze through. He managed to find a way to the front end of Class C and tried to keep it all together to the checkered flag. Danhauser applying massive pressure behind him. Priestley all on his own, getting away this time from Aldrich and from Freddie Watkins. Robert Stoltz having to pull into pit lane with a bit of an issue. Aldrich, though, having a fantastic second race. Must be enjoying those wet conditions. Not everybody was. Brett Garland certainly was, as he came to the line to take the second victory of the day in the Autobahn Honda Civic. A long way up the road from Tyler Scott, who'd gone farming on a few occasions. He'd come through for second place. Plain sailing there, but in the background, look how tight it was for second place and first in Class B. And Nick Martin had to fend off the attack coming from Courtney Nickel, a man who's had lots of experience in the rain, particularly at Zwartkops, but now at Redstar Raceway, knows his way around. Danhauser put the pressure on right to the final flag, but Fouget was up for the challenge and took the victory in Class C. So confirmation, Class A going to Garland, Scott and Henning, Nick Martin, Nickel and Mal Spur, top 3 in B, Fouget, Danhauser, Priestley and Aldrich, your top 4 in Class C. Fantastic family atmosphere as always in the Superhatch, and it's now time to enjoy the spoils of the day's racing. All the kids having some fun and games as well. We managed to catch up with the race organizer and COC for the day, Tony Taylor, up in race control.
COC is the busiest guy out here today at the track. And Tony, you've had a brilliant day, good racing, and luckily it's all gone according to plan.
You're so right. I thought with the weather forecast we were going to be in trouble, but this has been fantastic. The guys have performed well out there. Marshals are excellent. The racing's been stunning, and the crowd was spectacular. The best we've ever had at the circuit.
And how have you been?
I've been tops.
Just take us through what your involvement is on the day, because it's just running the whole event, isn't it?
Basically, yes. We actually have a couple of COCs. We have, like today, we have a COC for Volkswagen Challenge. We have a bike COC. And we have deputies. And I sit back and just make sure that the whole thing keeps running.
Thanks, Tony. I bet you Greg's going to ask, what the hell is a COC? Over to you, Greg. You can work that one out for yourself.
Never been able to work it out. Maybe I'll get it at the next round. That happens at Swartkops on the 4th of April. Join us there for action from the Extreme Festival of Motorsport. All this Extreme Festival of Motorsport action is proudly brought to you by Hankook Tires and Car Care Clinic.